Caratacus was valuable because he had survived too long. When Claudius invaded Britain, Rome expected victory to become paperwork, roads, forts, taxes, names written down by men who thought the war was ending. But Caratacus kept moving. He lost ground, then found another tribe. He lost battles, then made the next valley dangerous. Each escape made Rome look less complete.
I first heard his name from a wounded trader. He said it with one hand pressed to his ribs, Caratacus, like the name itself could stand up. I repeated it later when I was alone. Then I was ashamed because I served the queen.
That was the power of him. He was not saving Britain, he was keeping defeat open. So when his army broke and his road ran north, he chose the Brigantes, he chose Cartimandua, and he walked into a hall where Rome had already been fed. Cartimandua did not rule a poor edge of the world. The Brigantes held power across the north. Cattle, metal, warriors, tribute, marriage, loyalty, all of it moved through hands like hers. Her hall was not Roman, but Roman things had already entered it. Wine, glass, fine cups, too smooth for the old men to trust. Cartimandua understood something many rulers learned too late. Rome did not always need to conquer a throne. Sometimes Rome only needed to stand behind it.
The old women hated the Roman cups. The young men wanted to drink from them. The queen noticed both. She noticed who reached first. She noticed who refused.
To Rome, Cartimandua was useful. A northern shield. A queen who could keep order without another expensive war. To Cartimandua, Rome was also useful. A weapon she did not have to forge. A threat she did not have to shout. Then Caratacus arrived. Rome had waited 9 years to see him in chains. Now those chains were in her hall. Some betrayals are loud. This one may have begun with a quiet order. Cartimandua did not need to defeat Caratacus. Rome had already exhausted him. She only needed to choose whether his survival belonged to him or to her.
The ropes came out from behind the bench. That is how I knew the decision had already been made. No one called for them. No one argued. The men had been waiting. Caratacus looked at the queen. I looked down. I could not help it. When I looked up again, she was still looking at him. Not away. Not yet.
Cartimandua gave him to Rome. The man who had kept Britain's war alive was carried across the sea and shown to the emperor. His family was displayed. His defeat became theater. But Caratacus did not give Rome the ending it expected. He did not beg. He negotiated. A dead enemy proves your sword. A living one proves your mercy. He told Claudius to choose the story Rome would tell about itself. Claudius chose mercy. Caratacus lived. Rome applauded itself. Cartimandua gained favor. And in her own hall, Venutius set down his cup for the last time. His name was Venutius, Cartimandua's husband, a Brigantian nobleman, a warrior close enough to the throne that his loyalty once looked like part of her power. For a time, he lived inside the arrangement, Rome behind the queen beside him, the north quiet. Then Caratacus changed the meaning of everything. To Rome, the handover proved loyalty. To many Britons, it looked like the queen had sold the one man still standing.
Venutius did not shout that night. He did not strike the table. He only stopped drinking from the Roman cup. That frightened me more. Later, when I carried it away, the wine was still inside, untouched, dark, like blood that had cooled.
Power does not always crack in public. Sometimes it cracks at dinner, in the way a husband no longer turns his body toward his wife, in the way warriors stop laughing when her name is spoken. Cartimandua had given Rome an enemy. Now she had made one at home, and that enemy had time. The Roman writers make what followed sound like domestic scandal. It was more dangerous than that. The marriage became the place where Britain argued with itself. Cartimandua said survival could sit beside Rome. Venutius made men believe survival brought that way was already defeat. Cartimandua saw the threat growing, so she moved before it reached her throat. She took Venutius's brother, then others of his family, hostages, not beaten, not hidden, held where everyone would understand.
I carried water to one of them. He was young, younger than I expected. His wrists were tied, but his hair was combed. That made it worse. If they had dragged him in filthy, I could have called him an enemy, but he looked like someone's son. When he asked for more water, my hands shook. The queen saw my hands. This time she said nothing.
Venutius was quiet. He was not finished. Cartimandua had chained Rome's fugitive. Now she had chained her husband's blood. Venutius came for her, and Cartimandua reached again for the weapon that had worked before, Rome. Roman troops entered Brigantian politics not as conquerors this time, but as rescuers. Cartimandua's alliance had promised protection. Now she demanded payment. Soldiers came. Venutius was pushed back. The queen survived. But every rescue leaves evidence. And the evidence was Roman boots on Brigantian ground.
I hated the sound. Iron on our floors, Latin at our doors, men pointing inside a hall they had not built. But when shouting rose outside, I moved closer to the wall they guarded. I hated myself for that. I think the queen did too. Not because she was ashamed of Rome, because she knew we had all heard the same sound. Protection and ownership.
Cartimandua kept her throne, but after that, no one could pretend the throne stood alone. Venutius was beaten back, not broken. He waited. Some men are very good at waiting. Then came Vellocatus. He was not born to stand where kings stood. He had been Venutius's armor-bearer, the man behind the warrior, near the weapons, near the horses, near power, but not inside it. Cartimandua brought him closer, then closer still. She took him as her consort and raised him beside her, into the space Venutius had lost.
We all knew where Vellocatus used to stand, behind Venutius, close enough to carry his armor, never beside the queen. Then one morning, he entered with better cloth on his shoulders, and no one knew where to put their eyes. I looked at his belt, then at the floor, then at the queen's hand resting near his. That was worse than looking at his face.
Tacitus made this sound simple. A powerful woman ruined by desire. A queen made smaller by appetite. Maybe he wanted it simple. Powerful women were easier to manage when the explanation fit inside a scandal. But in Cartimandua's hall, Vellocatus was more than a lover. He was a message. To Venutius, you are replaceable. To the nobles, rank bends where I command it. To the Brigantes, blood does not decide everything. Venutius heard the message as humiliation. His wife had not only removed him, she had lifted the man who once carried his armor and placed him where a ruler might stand. After that, revolt did not need much persuasion. It only needed a year and Rome to look away. For years, Cartimandua had survived because Rome could answer. Then came AD 69. Rome turned inward. Nero was dead. Armies were choosing emperors. The empire that had seemed like a wall suddenly looked like a house on fire. Venutius saw his opening. So did every Brigantian who had waited for Roman certainty to weaken.
The messengers changed first. They used to arrive hard-faced, with horses still breathing white in the cold. Now they came late, sweating, angry, carrying news that did not sound like orders anymore. It sounded like fear. The queen asked how many soldiers were still in Britain. No one answered quickly. I counted to 8 before anyone spoke. That had never happened before.
This time, Cartimandua could still call Rome, but Rome couldn't come as Rome. Not fully, not with the old way. Venutius moved, not as a wounded husband now, as the center of revolt. Anti-Roman power gathered around him. The Brigantes rose with him. Cartimandua's danger became immediate. She asked for Roman protection again, and Rome sent what it could. Enough to reach her, enough to fight through, enough to save the queen, not enough to save the kingdom.
I remember my own hands this time. Not the queen's, not the prisoner's, mine. I tried to tie my cloak twice and failed. A bronze pin fell near the doorway. I left it there. My mother had given it to me. I still left it. That is how I know we were afraid. We did not choose what to carry. Fear chose for us. The queen did not run. She walked quickly, but her jaw was set in a way I had never seen before. When the shouting reached the inner doors, even she looked back, and when she did, I understood. She was not looking for treasure. She was measuring what would not come with us.
Roman troops pulled Cartimandua out of danger. She lived. That matters. She was not dragged through her own hall. She was not handed to Venutius. Rome kept its promise at the last possible moment, but it could not keep her throne. Venutius took the kingdom. Cartimandua vanished from the record, and Rome inherited the war. Cartimandua is easy to condemn if the story ends at Caratacus. A queen handed over a rebel. Rome rewarded her. Britain remembered the wound, but the story did not end there. That was only the first payment. The rest came later, in her marriage, in her nobles, in the silence around Roman cups. In the day, a servant left her mother's bronze pin on the floor because survival had become heavier than memory. A failed rebel is easier to admire than a surviving politician. Caratacus chose resistance and became a legend in chains. Venutius chose revolt and took the throne. Cartimandua chose Rome and lived long enough to learn what that choice had brought.
People ask about the night Caratacus came. They always ask if the queen looked ashamed. I was young then. I thought shame had to show on the face. I know better now. Sometimes people build halls over shame. Sometimes they pour wine into it and call it peace. I heard it break, iron on our floors, our own people at the doors, and the queen walking away from the throne that had kept us all warm.
A throne is not a chair, it is a fire. Everyone close to it reaches for heat. Cartimandua reached for Rome. For nearly 20 years, the bargain worked. Rome gave her everything a queen could use, and it gave her nothing she could keep. Then the bargain came due. Rome saved her life, not her kingdom. Cartimandua's story is not just about the queen who handed over a rebel. It is about a ruler who made the strongest power on earth her shield, and discovered the shield belonged to the one holding it.